All right, very good. I'm sorry. In September when I tried to do this, it just failed miserably. For whatever reason, the sound didn't record, and then I just didn't get around to it in October, which is embarrassing to say. But we are back. We are in November. I mean, it's right at the end of November. I recognize that, but then we will also do one in December and in January and keep the ball rolling here. I'm toying with and hopefully going to have the time to adjust from a once a month webinar to actually a shorter weekly webinar to be able to hit on more topics, especially topics as they come up in the chapters. So, reliant on all of you to give me a sense of what's happening and what the needs are and what the questions are so that we can bring them to the group. The goal still eventually is to have these webinars be interactive, and we just haven't had the time or the inclination to do that. Not so much because we don't believe in it. It's just it's finding the right program and getting it to you and all that. It just hasn't happened. So I wanted to take the first little bit of chunk of time to give you some updates on ID 916, kind of national, what's happening, where are we going, things you should be aware of, and then take the last bit of time to discuss what I tried to provide in September, which was about money and how we approach it, and some thoughts on the financial side of things. So some ID updates. As you saw at the last Disciples Night, we are pretty much saying goodbye to Juliana from an official working for ID 916 capacity. She is moving to work for the Be Love Revolution with Debbie Herbeck, working with young gals, and I just actually spent the evening with them at one of their beloved events. Gave a talk to the ladies, and it was just awesome. There was probably 60 girls in high school, college, and just post-grad. The older girls mentoring the younger girls, and all of them growing together. It's just really great. So I'm excited for her, and we're definitely going to miss her. And I know there's been some administrative things that have dropped as the transition has happened from her to our new kind of key administrative person. Her name is Katie Parada. She's in her final semester at Eastern Michigan, and she's just great. I think you're all gonna like her a lot, and we'll make sure to introduce her when she's formally on board. But she doesn't officially start working for us until the middle of December, and so in that kind of month and a half here, Juliana's been helping. She's been doing a little bit. I've been trying to pick up the slack. And I know there's some things that have fallen through the cracks. Additionally, we really want to streamline a lot of the administrative stuff, particularly when it comes to the Disciples Night prep and like the talk titles and who we're having. We've already booked the speakers up until pretty much, I think, every month until next August. I think there's 1 month in there that we're still looking for somebody. But pretty much every month is booked. So the hard part is we don't have a talk title for all of them. So we're going to do a little work as a team in coming up with some titles for those talks. And then once we have that, we'll just give them to you so that you can, in all the different channels of marketing that you have, you can get those out. In addition to Katie, very excited that Joey McCoy, who's been with us in a non-official capacity for a long time, is going to join us in the spring. So he is a medical student right now at the University of Michigan. And when he graduates, instead of pursuing medicine, he's going to be pursuing souls. He's going to be working with us, and he just feels very called by the Lord to do this. And he's in a position to do this, and we're in a position to bring him on the team. He's in the process right now of actually raising his own salary, kind of adopting a bit of like the focus model of having people raise their support. And he's seeing legitimate success, and he's going to be able to join us. So that's going to be huge on a whole host of reasons. His job description or his job title is going to be Assistant Director of ID 916. So he's going to be able to take a lot of what I'm currently doing and take it to another level, particularly in terms of helping all of our communities in our chapters become more evangelistic, more mission mindset. So he's going to develop more mission trips. Right now we're doing the one mission to Mexico City in January, but we'd like to host a few other trips throughout the year, both to Mexico and potentially Haiti and a few other places that would be chapter specific trips, so that Lansing or Cape Girardeau or Pittsburgh could say, yes, we'd like to take a group of young adults on a mission trip, and he and our team here at Renewal Ministries could facilitate that trip. So that's one area that he's going to be doing. He's also going to be coming up with like a training curriculum to help the leadership teams in each chapter. They themselves become more evangelistic and understand their role and how do you create a community of missionary disciples, but then also the tools to train the people in the chapter. And along with that will hopefully be some online training, but also some in-person training. So we're going to equip him to go out and spend time with each of the chapters. And it's just going to be incredible to have another set of hands and another brain and just more talent around to expand the mission. And the last thing is the Disciples Night talk time change. So last month we moved the starting time of the talk from 7:45 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And the reason we were doing that is the extra 15 minutes was very significant for our Central Time Zone chapters to be able to get everything they needed to be ready for it. Get mass in, get the meal, and even be, ready to listen. And so that extra 15 minutes, I think can be done in a couple different ways for the Eastern Time Zone. I'd like to see our chapters start offering testimonies. So what's the Lord doing in your community? Bring somebody up for 10 minutes and share, this is what God is doing. It doesn't have to be, I was struck by lightning and now I'm converted. That would be great, but I think it's more about just the various, starting to harvest some of the stories of what the Lord is doing in your chapter and make it very local, so that in some ways, every time they come to a Disciples Night, they hear big vision, big picture from Michigan through the live stream, but they're also getting a local flavor of what's going on and making sure the community is growing. You could also do your local announcements then as well. Just take that time, the extra time for announcements. Or, some chapters might just need the extra time for socializing and fellowship and the time to hang out. So I think there's one way to look at it and say, oh man, 15 more minutes to fill. We're going to end the same time. So it's not like there's a difference in terms of people staying later or anything like that. It's really more of how can we utilize the time better, and that way our Central Time Zone folks can be well served. So it could be socializing, announcements, testimonies, things like that. All right, now for the big picture stuff. Let's talk about money. So the reason I wanted to talk about this in September, and still I think applies right now, is ID916 has grown to the point where we've tested the model, we've made a lot of mistakes, we've learned what doesn't work. We're still learning to see what's the best way to do this. But what we found is that we have a model here that we feel very confident bringing to parishes to say, this is something you can do to help your young adults become intentional disciples. But in the midst of that, there's a very practical side of it, right? We aren't in this for money, because if we were, it wouldn't be a very lucrative thing. We're not in this for money, but we can't do it without money. And so that's why we've implemented the chapter fee structure based on the number of families in the parishes that are involved. And it's a nice piece of the puzzle to receive something from the chapters to be able to pay for the bills here within the ID916 central office here. Yet at the same time, it doesn't cover everything, and Renewal Ministries is generous enough to have us be included into the model, or the financial model for the entire ministry. But we have to begin to raise additional funds and continue to raise additional funds. And so over the last several months, one of the hats that I've been wearing is the financial development kind of fundraiser for the ministry. And it's been really awesome. I thought it was going to be really hard, and I didn't think I would like it very much, and I thought it would be uncomfortable. And in some ways, it's been all those things. But it's also been very life-giving and very much a time of growth for me and I've learned a lot about my own attachments to money and just how do you approach finances when you're involved in a ministry. And so I've got 3 thoughts that I want to share. They're not all-inclusive, but it's just 3 thoughts that I think, as we've applied some of these principles to our chapter here in Ann Arbor and in kind of the idea for growth for the whole ministry, they also, I think, would apply to you and your team as you think about the financial side of things. Because I know that it's a real thing. One of the issues that faces young adult ministry, kind of across the board, is just a lack of funds allotted to this. One of the big challenges I think we have is to help our pastors and our parishes and our diocese see that if we are serious about reaching the next generation, if we're serious about reaching millennials and young adults, well, then there needs to be some budget money towards it, you know. And one of the things I've seen as I look across the country and I've talked to a lot of people is there's just very, very little funds that are earmarked for young adult ministry. And there's a whole host of reasons for that. So if that's the case, we can't necessarily change that overnight. I think we can continue to cast the vision for pastors of why this is important, that stuff like, you know, Father, in 20 years, what percentage of your giving, weekly giving, is going to be dead or gone? You know, it's just, that's a reality. The people who are coming to Mass are getting older, and in 20 years, a good percentage of them are going to be gone. And if we're not kind of spending the money to make money by investing in our generation, well then 20 years down the road, we could be in some serious trouble. And in some ways, we already are in some serious trouble in terms of Mass attendance and giving that comes from that. So I think we just, as a community, as a young adult community, as a leadership team, as an ID 916 community, we have to embrace just a slightly different, more positive approach to seeing the financial resources not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity to expand the mission by inviting people through their contributions to be part of what the Lord is doing. And that is what is so exciting about fundraising and about saying to somebody, we're doing this, we are reaching young adults, we're serious about this, and you're concerned about your kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews and the different people in your life, your employees, all this different, and we're serious about them too, and we're concerned about them too. And you may not be able to build the community that we're able to, but your gift, your contribution, at whatever size, can help us do this work. And what I found is as I've cast the vision for what ID 916 is, and I've invited people into our ministry and invited people into our mission, the response has been overwhelmingly generous and overwhelmingly supportive, because people are concerned about our generation. They are concerned about what's happening in the parishes for this age group. And in some ways, what would they rather give to than something that's going to target those who have fallen away and those who are in the pews but maybe need to be mobilized? So, with that as an introduction, 3 thoughts for us on money. The first is, as disciples, our entire life is under the lordship of Christ. Everything. Our time, talent, treasure, everything we've given to Him, we've submitted to Him. He gave us, and now in free will we give back to Him and say, my heart, my soul, the very clothes on my back, everything, Lord, is yours to deal with. And when we approach our lives that way, in the reality of what it means to be a disciple, when we think about it that way, then money, it's His. Everything we have, all of our resources, they're His. And so however He wants us to use them is what we want to do. And so approaching it that way, just think what a gift that the Lord has given us, that whatever we have, it's pure gift. And that we can approach Him and say, Lord, what do you want me to do with these resources? You want me to be prudent, you want me to be wise, and you want me to listen to what you want me to do. But so we still have to do all, we have to take care of ourselves, we have to take care of our family, we need to work hard, we need to do all the things that He's called us to, yet at the same time not be so attached to think that this is my money, that the church is coming after my money, that ID 916 is coming after my money. No. What it is where does the Lord want you to give the money that He has gifted you with? Where is He inviting you to bless people through giving? And it could be ID, it could be your parish, I mean, it could be a whole host of things. And I think the church is wise to recommend the parish and a certain kind of understanding of tithing that we're not going to get into right now. But I just think as an ID community, and especially as a leadership team, as you're looking at your budget, what the parish is able to offer, and you're saying, oh, it's too small, oh, it's the right amount, whatever it is to say this still ultimately belongs to the Lord, and we want to use this to build up His kingdom, and to take the time to pray and say, Lord, what do you want me to do? I am your disciple. What do you want me to do with these resources? Okay, that's the first one. The second one is, and this is more applies to maybe when there isn't enough resource, there isn't enough cash for the chapter. You want to do an event, but you don't feel like you have enough money, or it's getting to the point where disciples' nights are becoming too expensive and people aren't paying. So the second thought here is, let's think creatively and intentionally and kind of long term about our strategies for the needs that we have right now. So a couple different ideas for this. One is to think creatively in that there is the approach that we are part of the parish community, and we absolutely need to respect the bounds and the situations that the parishes have created, the budgets that they've created. But are there different creative ways that we can raise money to supplement and support what is happening with the young adults? Would Father be willing to have a couple of young adults stand up at the end of Mass and take a second collection for the young adults discipleship groups and for the ID 916 chapter that started? I don't know, but we could ask. Would he be willing to release 10 names of kind of large givers in the parish who would be willing to sit down with you, and you could say, this is what we're doing with young adults, this is our needs for the year, could you help us with it? I mean, these are the kind of creative solutions that, instead of just being completely dependent on what the parish feels like it can give to you at the time to build the chapter, looking outside of that, are there, say food's getting expensive, is there a parishioner who owns an Italian restaurant in town who'd be willing to cut you a big deal for the Disciples' Night food, or would be willing to sponsor 6 Disciples' Nights? Or is there a wedding photographer in town who's would love to be able to get in the young adult Catholic world because people are getting married, and would be willing to sponsor for even $200 a Disciples' Night? You're going to say, this Disciples' Night is sponsored by X Photography, and she's here with cards, or she would love to be able to do the X, Y, and Z. So there's just different ways to think creatively about it. At the same time, by thinking creatively, we're also thinking long term, to say not only do we want to be sustainable for the right here and now, but we want to put some pieces in place that would allow us to continue to grow years in advance. And this also goes with helping the young adults see part of their responsibility as to build the chapter is to be able to bring their time and their talent and their treasure in the service of the community. And it could be as small but significant as having people pay for the Disciples' Night. Like in Ann Arbor, it's $10 for the whole thing, $5 if you're not eating. And that's a really pretty small thing given what you're receiving. You have Mass, you have a meal, and then a quality talk and fellowship time and all that. Maybe you just start with $5 and then build up from there. Or you have one night a year where you get somebody come up and give a testimony for what the community has done in their life, and then just pass the hat. Or just have the hat out at every month and just say, this isn't free for the parish to do. If you have some spare change on you, a few bucks to throw in a goodwill offering, that would be really helpful. I think what we find is that people don't just automatically give, but when asked, are often very willing to. And so to be able to be confident enough to say that we're not asking for ourselves, we're asking for the good of the mission, we're just inviting you, this is actually really good for you and for your own soul to bless the things that are blessing you. So we want to let you know what the needs are. This is where we are, and this is what we'd like, this is how we need your help. So the first one is, it's God's money. Second is, think creatively. And then the third, it ties into the first point, but ultimately, fundraising and all of this is about conversion. And this point I came from Henry Nouwen wrote a little thing. It was actually a talk he gave, but it's called The Spirituality of Fundraising. And what he talks about is fundraising and money within ministry has a twofold conversion at play. There's 2 conversion goals. One is the conversion of the person you're seeking a gift from. So when you go into an environment where you're seeking a gift to say, please bless us by X amount, ultimately what you're concerned about is not what they give financially, but is their heart, does their heart move closer to the Lord? Is the time that they spend with you, where you're casting vision, where you're sharing what the community is doing, where you're praying with them, when you're blessing them with your presence and with your spirit, is that helping them grow in holiness and as a disciple? Because if it's not, then we're after the wrong thing and we're not doing it well. When we go into a meeting with a donor, or when we go into a meeting with the pastor, or we go into a meeting with the parish council, wherever it is, and money is going to be part of the conversation, our prayer leading up to that, and our prayer the whole time we're there, and our focus needs to be conversion, meeting Jesus in a new way, in a more powerful way, walking down the path of discipleship, growing in holiness. Because if that's happening, then the money will come. Mission, very often, the Lord loves to bless when we step out. So we step out in mission, we cast the good news, we do what He's calling us to do, and then He supports us. We step out in faith and say, like, I don't know where this is going to come from, and then He blesses it. The second side of the conversion is our own conversion. How much do we trust the Lord? How tied are we to money as a support system, as a source of strength and a source of security? Because if we find ourselves really constantly anxious about it and worrying about, is it going to come, where's it going to come from, all those things, then I think that the Lord is revealing, and our own thoughts are revealing, that there's a deeper conversion that needs to happen in us. So Henry Nouwen talks about how when we fundraise, there's two primary conversions: the conversion of our own hearts to approach money with the right attachment, with the right understanding, with the right focus, and then the conversion of the person who we're going to invite into the mission. So it's God's money. Let's think creatively about how we can solve these different solutions, these different issues, changing the perspective a little bit, not seeing money as a stop block from being able to do something, but really actually an opportunity, a springboard to do more, and approaching it that way. And then finally, focused on conversion. How can we grow in holiness, and how can we help those who are inviting grow in holiness as well? Okay, so that's where we're at. I'm going to edit these together. I'll put it on YouTube. You can send it to your leadership team. Know that we're praying for you as anything comes up, any issues, any challenges, especially in terms of the financial, please let us know. We've got some other ideas as to help you be able to, again, lay that strong financial foundation to be able to be sustainable for years to come. All right, God bless you. Go make disciples.